I understand the next call is a split call. I'll ring the bell with a minute to go. The Honourable Fulgoff.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, Labor is supporting this legislation. It's supporting it because we are a member of the International Monetary Fund and we are therefore obliged to meet the obligations that we have in that regard. And the importance of this fund is such that this bill means that it slightly increases our commitment to underwrite an amount effectively to around about $3 billion. It's a significant underwriting for a country of our size. We are not so happy about the changes that allow future updates to the articles to be made by regulation. We don't think that is appropriate because it means decisions will then be made by the Minister without reference to a debate in this chamber. But I want to go back to a couple of points that are absolutely incorrect that were made by the Honourable Nick Smith. The accusation that the opposition parties, including Labor, is anti-global. I want to say to the Honourable Nick Smith that it was this Labor government that negotiated a free trade agreement with China. And I want to say, quite proudly, that after I signed that agreement in the Great Hall of the People in April 2008, our trade in 4 years has doubled with China, and that trade has moved more into balance with our exports to China going up faster than our imports to that country. And this national government would be in real trouble if we didn't have a free trade agreement with China that enabled us to have as our second biggest trading partner today a country that is enjoying 10% growth a year. And I want to say, additionally, that it was this Labor government that negotiated the free trade agreement with Australia and ASEAN, which is one of the fastest growing economic regions of the world. It was this Labor government that started the free trade negotiations for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So Nick Smith needs to look at his conscience when he makes rubbish statements like the Labor Party opposition is anti-global. This is a party in government that has expanded our horizons and opened up our markets. And I want to say this as well. He talks about reckless policies. I want to tell you what was reckless. Reckless was John Key and Bill English in opposition that kept telling us in government to spend the surplus. During the good years, they would have had us spend the surplus on tax cuts for the best off people. But no, the Labor government was smart. The Labor government actually used those surpluses to pay down the debt to the extent that when the National Government took office, the government accounts weren't in the red, Mr Speaker, they were in the black. We had a net surplus in the government accounts. And it was Bill English that stood up on the 12th of December and said that we're in a good position to take on the global financial crisis because the government had prepared for the rainy day. Government, he wasn't talking about the national government. They'd been in office 4 days. It was the Labor government that used the money responsibly, and if there's any reason why New Zealand is in a better shape than the Europeans and so many other countries in the world, it was because a Labor government had said we needed to prepare for the rainy day. We need to get our books into shape. And the fact that this national government's been able to borrow up to $300 million a week is because of the sound fiscal position that the Labor government left the National Party when it assumed office. I want to say, finally, in the last minute that's left, is to comment on John Hayes' remark. And I quote, "No asset can be viewed as truly safe." End quote. We know that, Mr Chairman. We know that the answer to get out of the economic position that New Zealand is in is not to sell off our best performing assets, the power companies that returned in 2010 $700 million to the New Zealand taxpayer. We will keep those assets and we will use growth to get this country back to the living standards and back to the sound economic position that the Labor government left it in when National became office. We support this bill, but I've got to say that in the last two National speakers, I've heard absolutely unadulterated nonsense about the shape of the economy they found and the commitment of this Labor Party, which in government has been a truly internationalist party that's played its role in the world, that's met its obligations.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. I call Dr Kennedy Graham.